Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here. I know that you're such an experienced social media manager, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story with social media. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great today. Unfortunately, I'm one of those morning people, and you're catching me in the morning, and I'm just a ball of energy. So thanks for
That's
having
great.
me. It's so nice to meet you.
That's great. Then this episode came at the right moment. Okay, let's start this podcast episode by getting to know you a little bit better. How would you describe yourself in a few words?
Sure. Well, I'm curious. I love to know about the why behind things. So because of that, I love to travel. I love history. I love to, this is going to sound weird, but I like to actually be in the place where history took place. I like to be with the people who have experienced whatever, just because I I draw off of that energy. I love knowing the deeper meaning behind things and people. So I'm curious, I'm optimistic. I firmly believe that people are amazing. Each of us has a gift to offer each other, to offer the world. So at my very core, I believe that. I'm empathetic. I'm I'm in all those personality tests. I
Yeah.
score really crazy high in the empath um, quadrant or whatever that's called. Anyway, so I enjoy getting to know people and what context they're coming from, and I just want to understand you better.
That's great. I feel like you kind of described me in some ways. I feel like we have a lot of common traits. That's great. Okay, now I'm curious if you can tell us a bit about how did you start your career? I'm curious if you have always worked in social media or if it was something that happened later or accidental in your life. If you can walk us a bit through your past roles.
Sure. Well, social media didn't, as we know it now, didn't come around until I was already in and through and past a few past a few career opportunities. So this is like my fourth career. Growing up, I always had an interest in people who were not in close proximity to me. So the way we would do that back in the 80s is a lot of us would be on shortwave radio. I would listen to these different countries and hear the voices coming from all over the world. So when I see that you're in Romania, that intrigues me, that draws me in. I can remember, hearing all of these different voices coming from continents that were far away from. I grew up in the States, if you can't tell, and that always intrigued me. And so what the fruit of that was, I had pen pals for every day of the month. I had letters coming in. We had aerograms back in the day where we would, send letters to friends from all over the world. Well, that curiosity put me into the airline industry. So I was the guy at the boarding gate who would board you, and that turned into working for a travel agency. I went to college. I didn't know too much about the internet. America Online was a thing, but I didn't even have an email address until I was in college. That morphed into getting my degree in public relations. And by the time I had graduated, I didn't know that, the average person can create a website. So I went back to school for that. All the while, I got a job at a radio station. So I was on the air, got to put on my radio voice, which I'm not even going to attempt. That was a copywriter. That turned into being a promotions manager. And then I went to work for a museum where I was a sales and promotions manager. So that was about, by the time that rolled around, was about 2008, 2009. And I was at a convention, a sales convention, and they said, your business needs to be on Facebook. So
Right.
that evening, I went back to my hotel room and I started a Facebook page for the museum. I didn't tell anyone. I apologized later, but everybody seemed to be grateful that I started it because it began to explode just with the interaction, and we were having a lot of fun with it. And that morphed into doing social media full time. So I've been doing social media full time since 2009, which is kind of ancient now.
Oh my God, you have quite a story. I think you're the guest with the most experience in such different industries and jobs. What made you stick with social media?
Well, just the intrigue, just the love for people, and to be able to show them, what we have to offer, just to brighten your day. Even, at the museum, we had a petting zoo. So it was kind of fun to go out there and, show people what a camel is like. We don't have camels just roaming around.
Yeah.
and we would show them different workshops that we would have. And that garnered so much interest that people, began to ask me, hey, Jason, will you come and, help me with my social media? I get so many people asking for that I did go out on my own. And while I was out on my own doing social media, I got to learn more about other businesses and how I, as coming from a consumer standpoint, got to discover about these businesses and then share their story on social. So all of that is just, I just love that, because it enables me to share the thrill of discovery for that business to other people who, may or may not be interested in it, but hopefully they will become interested in it and eventually buy. But that's just kept me in it. It's always something new. I tried to break away from social media in there and just kind of, explore other career opportunities, things like that. But it's always drawn me back because it's always changing. There's always a story to tell, and there's always a different way to tell it. So that's part of the reason why I've hung in there, and I'm not going to leave anytime soon.
That's great. Yeah, it really seems that this is the job for you. So I'm really happy that you find your way. Now I know that social media is such a busy world, like you mentioned yourself earlier, and social media managers' jobs are filled with all sorts of tasks and juggling with those every single day. So I was wondering, what does your day-to-day schedule look like, if you can walk us through it?
Yeah, so you're going to hear a lot of people say when we talk about being a social media manager, right, that there's a lot of different things. No day looks the same. In order to keep my sanity, I am an introvert. So, and what that means, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm shy or anything like that. It just means that every now and then I need Jason time. I need to work by myself and process through whatever. Now with social media, it's always going. So what I do is I try to theme my days. So to kick off the week, I call Monday my non-people day. So
I love
catch
that.
me on a Monday. If you catch me on a Monday, oftentimes I can be found at a library or in a room somewhere where I'm quiet. And that's where I have time to process the week ahead. What posts are going to go out, refine anything that I had developed the previous week. Was that idea that I had last Thursday, was that a good idea? Monday is my day to kind of calm down and say, okay, does what I have planned mesh with, it could be the news, just the culture, what's going on in the broader world. Is this going to jive? Is it going to sync up with where people are at today or this week? So Monday, non-people day. Tuesday is my day to be around people. I network regularly with industry peers. In the morning, I'm on a Zoom call. In the afternoon, I'm on a Zoom call. I'm masterminding with other social media people, because let's face it, a lot of people, if you work in a company environment, a lot of people may not understand you as a social media manager. You know, we're kind of a rare breed in that our way of marketing is different than a traditional marketer. Our way of communicating, we don't hard sell usually. So it helps to have relationships with other people who are in that same role. So Tuesday is that. Wednesday, I do a lot of meetings with my coworkers, pull social media reports, and use that more analytical part of my brain. On Thursday, it's kind of a non-people day. I will interact with you. I mean, this is a Thursday that we're recording this. So I'll talk to you. But the main focus for Thursday is I'm taking all kinds of video content and getting it ready for reels, seeing how I can repurpose content. So that's Thursday. I'm beginning to look ahead for the upcoming days, the upcoming weeks. And then Friday, I'm putting some meat on what I was thinking up on Thursday with, okay, this is what this is what I'm going to be working on next week. We have a live show that I work with, making sure that happens successfully, and just tying in any loose ends up.
That's great. I love how organized everything is. And I think it's really helpful that you explained thoroughly what you do every single day, because I feel like a lot of social media managers say, okay, I do reporting, I do content creation, I do this and that. But I think it's easier for people to visualize exactly what does a day in your life look like if you actually say, okay, on Monday I did this. So I love that.
No day looks the same, but it's nice to have a rhythm. And what I have found is, if you're being tossed to and fro, it's very easy to lose focus.
Oh, yes.
And so that's what works for me. I know it's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah. You definitely have to find your own pace. Yeah. Now I'd like us to talk a bit about social media managers' probably biggest challenge in the whole world, and that would be, at least from what I keep hearing, generating unique and engaging content. So I was wondering if you could share us your tips on how do you keep finding those unique and crazy ideas, especially in such a busy world such as social media.
Yeah, well, it's having a really good idea of who you're speaking to and what their concerns are. Some tips that I've heard that I'm starting to employ are using, Google keyword. You just start typing in, hey, I'm involved in this. So let's say I'm, talking about, I'm traveling. I'm going to Romania. Okay, I'm traveling to Romania. So if I just start typing in top places to visit in Romania, so Google's going to have that drop down, and you're going to see what people are searching for. Also, answerthepublic.com. You can see what people are asking about. So taking some of that inspiration and just going ahead and asking questions. Right now, the Facebook algorithm is all about the interaction within that post. So that's your opportunity right there. If something interests you, Google answerthepublic.com and then plug it into your community and go ahead and ask. And if there's interest, my goodness, you're going to get the comments. You're going to get people responding to that. uh, yeah, putting yourself in the customer's shoes. That's the key.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, social media is all about social, right? It's about the people. So you definitely have to have that mindset that people are at the center of everything that you do in social media. So I think that's really great. Now, I was wondering, what are your most significant social media marketing challenges that you face? Because I talked about what I keep hearing from social media managers, but for you, there might be different challenges. I don't know. So if you can develop on that.
Sure. I mean, one of the biggies is like right now, everybody's talking about the Instagram hashtags, right? Like Adam Mosseri got on there and got on Instagram. If you don't know who Adam Mosseri is, he's the algorithm guy, right?
Yeah.
He was with Facebook. Now he's focused on Instagram. And he made the comment that hashtags are not necessarily that important. And we've all taken that soundbite and we've interpreted it different ways. And what he was saying is, the way we search as consumers, the way we search on Instagram, we're no longer using that hashtag, but some people still are. So if I'm wanting to find out about, best pizza in New York, I'm not going to say hashtag New York pizza. I'm going to just type in New York pizza. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of noise out there. People saying you should have hashtags, people saying you shouldn't have hashtags. That gets very confusing. And how do we deal with that? My answer is you test it and see if it works for you. But I would say that there's a lot of noise like that, just about every week. Well, my goodness, for 10 years, I've been hearing people say Facebook is on its way out.
Facebook is dying, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's there. So deal with that and shift with it and work within what they say is going to work. So it's just that adaptation. That's a challenge, but challenges are opportunities.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, every negative thing that is happening in your life can have, at the end of the day, some positive meaning to it. So go and grab that. Now, I've read the social media marketing industry report that you guys release annually at Social Media Examiner. And one of your main findings was that TikTok is ignored by most marketers. And this is something that I keep hearing from social media managers I talk to. But at Socialinsider, we released a study, a social media industry benchmark study, where we demonstrated that TikTok is actually generating the most engagement among all social media platforms. And I was curious, why do you think social media managers are reluctant to use this platform despite having such a huge potential in reaching people?
Yeah, there's that stereotype, isn't there, about TikTok, that you've got to have, like, I don't know, dancing cats or something, or you need to dress up like a cat and dance. I don't know, but I think there's just a lot of unknown, and that can be intimidating. For me, it is intimidating because I hear people dancing with cats and I'm thinking, I don't do that. I'm not that entertaining. I'm not funny. But to actually get in there and see what's happening. I mean, there's some people who have really stepped up and have said, you know what, I'm not dancing with any cats, but I'll give some sort of value or some sort of inspirational short form content that I'm going to offer, and they're doing great. So I think it's a matter of really thinking about how your brand can speak to individuals. Is it going to reach new people? That's a good question to ask. Is it going to apply to the people who want to watch dancing cats? maybe not, but there are other people who might be interested. So I would suggest getting in there, getting on TikTok just as a person, and following accounts that are interesting to you. Because when you first get in there, my goodness, you're going to see things that are not like you, but their algorithm is very smart.
Oh yeah.
And you will find people who you appreciate their content. And when you're ready to join in the conversation, hop on. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but the fear element, since I've gotten in there and seen that, okay, there might not be hundreds of thousands of people like me on there, but there might be thousands or tens of thousands who I can develop relationships with using TikTok.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. And it's interesting because I'm a heavy user myself of TikTok, but I've never made a TikTok video ever in my life. And I'm scared about that, even though I absolutely love the platform. So I definitely understand where this fear is coming from. But at the end of the day, social media is fun, right? So what do you have to lose? Just go out there, have fun, try some, and maybe something good will work out at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think we've touched a bit on those before, but I was wondering if you could tell us, what do you think are the top skills that a social media managers needs to be successful in this career?
Yeah, that ability. Yeah, the ability to adapt. I mean, when I started in social media, we weren't posting too many pictures, much less video. I can remember when that was a big deal. Like when Facebook first came online, it used to have on your status, Jason is eating a hamburger, and then they took off the is, and it became much more like, okay, Jason is eating a hamburger at such and such place, and it's tasty, and here's a picture. And then video came online. That ability to adapt and to see how, okay, this week I'm going to try this week I'm going to stretch myself a little bit. The desire to understand others. I think that's a biggie. It's a big deal when somebody comments on your post. I ask myself this often: when was the last time you posted on a public page? I don't do it all that often because you're really sticking yourself out there when you're commenting, because a stranger might reply to you.
Yeah.
That can be scary. So having that understanding that people are stepping up when they're interacting with you on social media, that's a big thing. And networking, I think that's a biggie, because we don't all have the answers. I don't have all the answers, like with TikTok and things like that, but to be able to say, okay, what about this? And to reach out to somebody and ask. And that's what I love about this industry, is it's very much, we cooperate with one another. There's not a lot of hard-hitting competition. It's, we call it co-opetition, where we build each other up. So I think that's a skill, to be able to network and to learn from each other.
Yeah, it's definitely a great community. I'm definitely grateful to be part of it. So I think we should take advantage of those awesome people that are out there and that are willing to help us. Yeah. Now, if you could teach me only 3 things about social media, what would you teach me? I'm sure this is a tough question to pick only 3. But what would those be?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that about just the average person doesn't hop on social media and say, hey, market to me. I would love for your brand to reach out to me and entertain me. They're not doing that. They're there to escape, connect, maybe learn something. But, I visualize somebody, standing in the checkout line at the supermarket, thinking, oh, I'm going to hop on social media real quick while I'm standing here. So have that perspective. So that's the reason short form content, I think, is so hot right now, is because we're beginning to understand that I'm not going to sit here for half an hour and watch your video while I'm on standing in line. I might when I'm at home, but understand that there's a difference between what you're doing on YouTube as opposed to what you're doing on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook.
Yes.
Published is better than perfect. You hear that a lot. You got to step up and be willing to not do it well every time. Here in North America, baseball is a big thing, not as big as it used to be, but when a player, when a hitter comes up to bat, they're considered successful if they get a hit 1/3 of the time. Most of the time, they're not going to get a hit. And that's, if we have that mentality of, you know what, I'm going to step up. I may not be successful at this attempt, but at least I tried. If it happens 1/3 of the time, you're a great success. And yeah, celebrating when people engage with you. I think that's a big thing. Have you ever heard that where they say that some of the people who get the most fulfillment out of their work are construction workers because they can see the project to completion, like that building is done, and they can say, there, the building is done. With social media, it's always going. There, very rarely do we look back. Now, sometimes there's a campaign, you can say, oh, that campaign did really well, but we need to stop and celebrate. So I would say that just recognize it for what it is it's always moving, but sometimes it's good to stop and celebrate a little.
Definitely. That's great. Now, because this podcast session is coming to an end, I always love to ask this question to my guest at the end of the episode. I personally absolutely love social media, and I'm sure you do from what I heard until now. So I was curious if you can tell us what are the 3 main benefits of using social media. Why should brands be on social media?
Yeah, so well, it allows brands to connect with their fans. You're adding a new dimension to the process, the whole behind the scenes thing, that's a big deal. It's a big deal to know who's behind this logo. And you have that intermediate step where it's not just like you're going in and buying something, you're actually learning the why. Bringing the world together. My goodness, look, we're talking to each other from across the world. That's amazing. That is amazing. You could buy a course from me and we wouldn't think anything of it in this day and age. And I love that. And social media allows us to do that and to connect and understand each other. The customer gets more freedom to make good decisions. I would say my last point, years ago, a vacuum cleaner salesman came to my door and sold me a vacuum cleaner that I could not afford. He convinced me on the spot to buy this thing. I still have it. It's been 22 years ago.
Okay.
But I didn't know anything. I didn't know that I needed a vacuum cleaner until this guy came to my door. He sold me on it. He was pretty slick. Sold me on it. Now I was in debt and had a vacuum cleaner. Well, nowadays, you don't just do that. Social media has allowed us to really investigate and say, am I making a good decision? Am I willing to spend more money on a quality product, or am I willing just to kind of buy the average thing for a lower price point and know that I'm going to need to replace it every now and then? Social media allows us that space as a customer to make good decisions.
Right. Yeah, I loved those. I'm sure there are many more benefits than those that you mentioned, but those are pretty awesome. Now, Jason, can you tell us what are your future plans and where can my audience find you and follow you?
Sure. Well, I'm the social media manager over at Social Media Examiner, and that's where I enjoy my time these days, and that's just growing with that company is important to me, and I find myself very aligned with them. So you can find me, just Google Jason Goff, Social Media Examiner. I'm on Twitter, JasonGoff_com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you so much, Jason. It was an absolute pleasure. I learned a lot from you and I had fun as well.
So
it was
nice
great
to meet
meeting
you.
You too. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.